Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by listeners like you. We would like to thank Christine Bannis, Spencer Wright, Lindsay Scaife, and Joshua Volkert. Support the show for as little as 99 cents per month by clicking on our listener support link in our show notes. If you are interested in advertising your event, business, or service, please email Aljon at skullrockpodcast.com. Thank you for your ongoing support.
Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by the generosity of the following companies. The Old Mill Press, publishing beautifully crafted books that illuminate our world. To learn more, visit theoldmillpress.com. And by listeners like you.
Hey, this is Willie Ito, retired Disney animator, and you are listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Dave, that's how you load them up.
Some demon or goblin is doing it now.
I love it. All right, stand by. Okay, here we go.
Skull Rock Podcast, where you hear the stories behind the adventures. With your hosts, Aljon Go and Dave Bossert.
Welcome to Skull Rock Podcast, the show about all things Disney and pop culture. Every week, we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, music, as well as what's streaming, what's in theaters, and what's going on in this universe of entertainment. I'm Aljon Go, musician and longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and pop culturist. And you can email me, Aljon, A-L-J-O-N, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, author, and welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we're on YouTube. You can also email me at dave@skullrockpodcast.com. Aljon, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I'm jumping ahead of myself. I hope you had a great Halloween, and I hope all our listeners had a fantastic Halloween.
Yes, it was fantastic. The kiddos got a chance to dress up in their Disney costumes and Marvel costumes, and we went out in the family and got a bunch of candy. And we try to teach them the Halloween etiquette, Dave. You know, you knock on the door, you ring the doorbell, you say trick or treat, and then you say thank you. And sometimes they just get ahead of themselves. They just start running from place to place, going crazy. But, you know, we gave them a little bit of candy, and now throughout the year, they're going to get a little every now and again. And it was good. It was a little wet, but it was good.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Now, how about you?
It's a magical time for the little ones when they go out, and some of them do get into the mode of grab and go.
Yes, they do.
Know? They just can't get it fast enough, you know.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you know, our Halloween was a little on the quiet side. It was on a Thursday night, but out here, I don't know if it's the same in Nashville, but out here, school was closed on Friday. So they made it like a staff day or something, like, you know, like a staff training day.
Yeah.
But we still didn't get a lot of kids. Our neighborhood is one that the kids have all aged out of, you know, but, you know, it was nice sitting on the driveway with a bottle of wine and some of our neighbors and just enjoying the handful that came around trick-or-treating. Well, we have a great show, Aljon. We've got James Warda and Theron talking about how does Disney do that, their new book. And I found this book to be very, very fascinating, and they're going to tell us all about it in their interview. And that book, I think, came out a few months ago, but it's a perfect gift for any Disney fan. And it's a terrific read. So I can't wait to get to that.
It's amazing. I mean, and this is the time of year that you can get your wish list done and shop for yourself, shop for others. And I think every Disney fan that listens to this show is definitely going to put this on their wish list.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've got some mail.
How about that?
Skull Rock Podcast answers your email.
So, we've got an email from one of our worldwide listeners. Yes, Timos from Greece sent us a note. He says, "Hi, Dave. I am a listener from Greece and have previously gotten in touch with you, but today I just wanted to drop a message to share what I think is one of my all-time favorite and most original series I've ever watched. It is called Severance. Incredibly, Ben Stiller is behind it, among others, as director, and it just captivated me from the first seconds. Its a unique feel, approach, and pace make it a standout as something of its own. If you haven't seen it already, please do yourself the favor, as season 2 is coming up in January, I believe. Again, all the best and happy spooky season. Timos from Greece." Well, Timos, thanks very much for the recommendation. And I took it to heart because I watched 4 episodes of season 1. And we're gonna talk about that in our picks. I love it when people recommend shows. And by the way, Aljon, I think one of our, aside from our interviews with all the fabulous guests we have, I think one of the parts of this podcast that I get so much feedback on is Dave and Aljon's picks of the week, what we're watching. It's amazing.
Well, that's great. I'm glad people listen to what we're watching and how we rate things and review them. So that's great. And Timos, thank you for the feedback. I personally love Ben Stiller's work. I like him as an actor. I like him behind the scenes. I think he's got vision. I think he knows what he wants to do and accomplish. And I'm looking forward to this recommendation. I'll check it out myself. I hope, I mean, maybe based on your review, Dave, we'll find out because I trust you about this type of. I am looking forward to this show based on, your review. So.
Okay,
so
we're going to get to it.
All right, sounds good. Hey, once again, if you have an email, question, or comment, you can leave us a voicemail. The link is in our show notes, or you can just email. Read your message and email a future episode. Now for our picks of the week, Dave.
Well, I've been busy because, I'm still catching up on stuff. But I did have a chance to go see Absolution in the movie theater.
Okay.
This is a new Liam Neeson movie. And, I love Liam Neeson. I think he's a terrific presence on screen. And, ever since he did those Taken films, he's been doing all these action films.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what film he's in. I generally like him, but I can't really recommend this movie because I don't think this film knows what it wants to be.
Oh, no.
Absolution, which I think originally was titled Thug. But it's called Absolution. It's out in the theaters. It's about an aging gangster, Liam Neeson, who tries to reconnect with his children and fix the mistakes from his past. But his criminal lifestyle soon threatens to destroy everything he holds dear. The film stars Yolanda Ross, Ron Perlman, Daniel Dimer, Frankie Shaw, Jimmy Gomez, and of course Liam Neeson is the aging gangster. I always enjoy his performances, but I just felt like this film focused a lot on character development, which is not a bad thing. But there was also some action and some, brutality. But I don't know. This movie just didn't feel like it knew what it wanted to be. And therefore, from my standpoint, you might as well just wait until this comes on one of the streamers if you're a Liam Neeson fan and you want to see it. It was directed by Hans Peter Moland, who Liam Neeson worked with previously in a film called Cold Pursuit. which I actually really liked. You know, Cold Pursuit was actually a good Liam Neeson movie, but this one just misses the mark as far as I'm concerned. Rotten Tomatoes gives it 44%, IMDb 5.6%, and Metacritic is 51% on it.
That's too bad.
So that's kind of what I watched in the movie theaters. But on the small screen, I did watch It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Oh yeah,
which I watch every year.
Yeah.
You know, it's a fantastic Halloween special. I love it. You know, Rotten Tomatoes, it's 90%. IMDb, it's 8.1%, which frankly I think is low. And if you like Charlie Brown and the Gang, It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown is a great Halloween classic.
100%.
So I watched that, and it's on Apple. And by the way, Apple Plus has all of the Charlie Brown specials,
awesome,
as well as the new ones they're making.
The new ones are not bad, Dave. I like the new ones.
They're not bad at all.
Yeah.
I think they've done a really good job on them.
Yeah.
I've also caught up on season 2 of Shrinking, which is also on Apple Plus, starring Harrison Ford and Jason Segel, Christina Miller, Jessica Williams. It's Wendy Malick is in it as well. Really enjoy it. It's funny writing. It's a terrific show. Shrinking on Apple Plus. Over on Paramount Plus, I keep watching Tulsa King as the episodes drop with Sly Stallone. I love this series.
Yeah,
I really do. I think this is a terrific series. It's got 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's really a fantastic series. I highly recommend it over on Paramount Plus. And then, because Timos had recommended it, I did watch Severance, which stars Adam Scott, Britt Lower, who else is in it? John Turturro, which we don't see very often. Patricia Arquette, who's fantastic in no matter what she's in. And it's got 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. Here's what I'm going to say about this show. You have to get through the first episode. The first episode, you're kind of wondering what the heck is going on. And by the end of the first episode, it starts to make some kind of sense. And once you get into the second episode, it's gripped you. It really sinks its claws into you, and you're going to continue to watch this. I've really enjoyed it, and I appreciate one of our listeners, Timos from Greece, for recommending it. So that's and the premise is Mark leads a team of office workers whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives.
Yes.
When a mysterious colleague appears outside of work, it begins a journey to discover the truth about their jobs. It's, you know, Ben Stiller has directed a lot of the episodes. It really is terrific, and terrific performances. And by the way, Christopher Walken is in this as well.
Yeah.
And I just love him.
Well, yeah.
He's fabulous.
The cast is great. I mean, first of all, yes, about Patricia Arquette. And Gwendolyn Christie's in here too. I'm like, this cast looks amazing. And I remember seeing promos for Severance, and it looked very interesting to me. So I think I'm going to have to take you up on this. And if you give it a thumbs up, Dave, I think I'm putting this in my watch list right now.
Yeah, and like I said, you got to get through the first episode. Okay, it's available on Apple Plus, Apple TV, as well as Prime Video. Okay. And then, Aljon, I finished watching season 2 of The Old Man. Dan Chase absconds from the CIA and lives off the grid. When an assassin arrives and tries to take Chase out, the old operative learns that to ensure his future, he now must reconcile his past. So that's on Hulu. So if you've got Disney Plus and you got the Disney bundle with Hulu, check that out. The Old Man with it's just got a great cast starring Jeff Bridges, Ali Shawkat, Amy Brenneman, John Lithgow, Joel Grey. I mean, again, another great cast, great writing, really terrific series. So check that out. And then finally, over on Netflix, I watched, and Nancy and I binge watched this because there's only 6 episodes in season 2.
Okay.
Kerry Russell and Rufus Sewell are in the show The Diplomat. And if you haven't watched season 1, I would just encourage you, watch season 1 and then watch season 2. This is an absolutely fantastic series on Netflix. And by the way, there will be a season 3 coming. Okay. Yeah. So you got to check it out. It's just a really awesome cast. You know, Rory Kinnear is in that. You may remember him from that Frankenstein show. Mm-hmm. It was like, I forget the name of it. It's just, you know, an awesome television show that has Kerry Russell as the ambassador of the United States to Britain. And there's a lot that happens this series. It's just incredible acting. Allison Janney's in it. It's an unbelievable cast. Rotten Tomatoes has 92% on it. But you can check it out on Netflix. So that's what I've been watching, Aljon. What have you been watching?
A few things, Dave. And first of all, Kerry Russell is awesome. It's again adding it. Well, we're able
You've
to
been
get
watching a lot of horror.
I did. You know, this is the heels of the horror. You know, every year.
It's that time of year, right?
It's that time of year, of course. And we hit the theaters to see Smile 2. Now, we've talked about Smile 2 making it big at the box office. And I'll be honest, the first Smile movie was good. It was very good. And, you know, it's funny. I'm very Roger Ebert regarding these type of things. Gene Siskel, they are real film critics. Okay. I am not. I'm just a hack. I'm an entertainment hound, but we're just
podcasters playing film critics.
Exactly. I'm a fan. I'm a fanboy, right? Okay. So I give it a thumbs up. My rewatchability is there. Do I want to watch it again? Was it a waste of time? Smile was great for me as a horror film aficionado. It was very good. This one is even better. All right. So here we are. About to embark on a world tour, global pop sensation Sky Riley begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and the pressures of fame, is forced to face her past. Now, this is really well acted and well done, in my opinion. Naomi Scott. You might know Naomi Scott from Disney's Aladdin remake, live action with Will Smith. She literally is the film. She does such a great job as playing a pop star a la Lady Gaga esque. I think, that was the inspiration of basically a singer who has made multi-platinum success. She is touring stadiums. She's at the height of her career and falls on her face because she gets into a car accident, horrific car accident. Someone died, and then she goes into rehab. Her career is falling apart, and here she is on the comeback. She's happening. She's getting ready for the tour, and all of a sudden, chaos ensues because she's being haunted by this demon, this demonic force. What is it? Is it taking over her body? What all happens? Is what's real and what's make-believe? She doesn't know. So I think she does a really good job in it as well. There is Peter Jacobson, who plays Morris, and Peter Jacobson was in the TV show House. He's been in a lot of different shows. I was a big fan of the House TV show on Fox, and the whole cast is outstanding. So better than the original. It's got a 7.2 on IMDb. I rated an 8 out of 10. It's really good. That's good. Unusual that a sequel is actually getting a higher rating than the first one. I like it. I think it's very well focused, and I think the storytelling is better. And because I believe this is now a franchise, as they're building these new horror franchises in this day and age, it leaves more questions than answers, and they're good ones, that leads the audiences going, what is up with this horror? What's up with this suspense? I need to know more. So it leaves me wanting more. I'm happy about that. Next up is A Quiet Place, day one. And right now this is streaming on MGM Plus, also Paramount, Amazon. This is very good. You oftentimes wonder, what other stories can you tell about A Quiet Place? You've already seen two of the films. I thought they were very well done. I thought maybe the second one was not as good as the first. The first one with John Krasinski was amazing. And here's another one of my favorite new actors, Lupita Nyong'o. Lupita Nyong'o is so good. I cannot tell you how enthralled and captivating she is. She is brilliant. I love to see her act. And of course, in a movie like this, where there's very little dialogue, right? It's a quiet place. These aliens are invading Earth day one. This is how the whole world falls apart as this prequel unfolds. Her acting is great. And once again, I'm just entranced by her. She's just wonderful. Now, the boilerplate reads, a young woman named Sam finds herself trapped in New York City during the early stages of an invasion by alien creatures with ultra-sensitive hearing. Dave, did you watch A Quiet Place?
I did. I really liked it a lot. I thought John Krasinski, who did that movie, did a fantastic job. It was really well done.
It was great, right? For actor, director, writer. He does the same thing here. I believe this is actually directed by Michael Sarnowski, I believe, who also wrote the screenplay with him, with John Krasinski and Brian Woods. I thought they did a great job. You know, the first one dealt with what life was like in a dystopian future in a farm. The next one dealt with it in the city, out there in the suburbs. And now we're here in the big city, New York City. You know, Day one. And you're invested. You know, we've said this for many movies we've seen, that they need to just captivate us from the beginning, you know, and give us that kind of scream or Hitchcockian hook the first 15 minutes of the film, and then lead us down that path and to act 1, 2, and 3, where everything gets a payoff. I think they do it. And did you see this one at all?
I have not seen Quiet Place Day One.
Okay. Well, it's great. Also supporting cast in here, Joseph Quinn, who was in Stranger Things as Eddie, the guitar playing kid in Stranger Things.
You're right.
I found him to be just wonderful. The chemistry between the two of them, because it's really a buddy film almost, if you will, along with a cat. And they say never act with animals, but totally got this cat here. And I'm a cat fan. High thumbs up for me. I gave it an 8.10. It actually scored a 6.3 on IMDb. And the Metacritic score is 68, so it got decent scores, but I really enjoyed it, as you can tell.
Awesome.
Next up, Woman of the Hour. Now, this is, I believe this to be the directorial debut of Anna Kendrick.
Okay.
This is streaming on Netflix. Cheryl Bradshaw is a single woman looking for a suitor on that 1970s show, The Dating Game, and chooses a charming bachelor, Rodney Alcaca, unaware that behind the man's gentle facade he hides a deadly secret. Dave, you know about the dating game killer?
No.
This is exactly what happened.
Oh, so this is the
true
story of that, right?
This is the true story of Anna Kendrick plays a real life Cheryl. She goes on this dating game show. She's an aspiring actress. Lo and behold, she gets set up on this dating game with a guy that is a serial killer. And this actually happened. She does a great job. Anna is she is coming up. Not only is she just a great actress, but she's showing off her directorial chops on this. I think she did a great job. They captured the lighting, the vibe of the dating game, everything. And I think for a direct to Netflix type of movie, I mean, not to disparage on those type of programs, because Lord knows I've seen a lot of them. I think this was very good. So 7 out of 10 for me. It was not a waste of time, at least for her. I maybe even give it like a 6.5, and this right here, 6.6 out of 10, Metacritic at 74. So definitely a thumbs up for me. Woman of the Hour. Good job, Anna Kendrick. And last but not least, because it is still, the season, we ended up watching a movie called House of Spoils. Did I mention before, Dave?
I don't recall you mentioning
House
that.
of Spoils tells the story of a chef who opens up her first restaurant, where she battles kitchen chaos, a dubious investor, and self-doubt. But the pressure heats up thanks to the spirit of an estate's previous owner, who threatens to sabotage her. Now, this movie is not your typical horror movie. It's more like a thriller or a ghost story. And so I think people that are interested in these type of horror thrillers, I would say it's more of a thriller or suspense movie, akin to something like The Boy or The Others would be interested in something like this. I thought that the lead, Ariana DeBose, who plays the chef, did a really good job in this film. However, I would say it was good for like a show you would see on Chiller or on Hulu. This one happens to stream on Prime Video. I believe this is a Blumhouse presented film. So it gets decent scores for me, 4.9 from the crowd there at IMDb. I rated a 6, so it's good. There's some, I think, pacing issues in it, but I think overall it is a nice film. All right, so
all right,
there you go. That's what we've been watching this week. What have you been watching? Let us know. Send us an email or drop us a comment on our YouTube page, and we'll talk about it in an upcoming episode.
Skull Rock Podcast. This week in Disney and pop culture.
I have to say, Aljon, I was laughing because I all of the films you watched were like horror or murder. Or both.
Well, it's a good thing, right?
And here I am watching. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Well, isn't that usually what happens during this time of year?
I know it's the Halloween season.
It is, and you know what? I've got other films I do watch. I've got Inside Out 2. Finally, I've got that in the queue, and some other things. So we'll talk about it. Transformers. I'll see some animated stuff. We'll talk about it next week. All right, Dave. In the box office this week, Venom is at number 1, grossing over $6.6 million. Smile 2 that we talked about, 1.9, and Here, I guess, is the latest film, I guess, debuting this week about the generation loss of I guess, a generation story, if you will, with Tom Hanks. This is that one where they have that video about the trailer about them living in the same house in the same room.
Yes, and it's sort of a locked-off camera of the same room in the same house. It stars Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, who are reunited from their Forrest Gump film, and also reunited with director Robert Zemeckis, who directed Forrest Gump and is directing this. This has gotten, I think, a horrible opening weekend. It's like, what, 1.7 million?
Yeah, like 1.9 as of Friday. Apparently, but the film itself, I don't know. Is it doing well? I honestly don't think that they marketed this movie very well. I don't understand, what the full story is. They haven't really conveyed it out to the audience, out to people who would be interested in seeing it. Yeah. I mean, I certainly like Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. I think Robert Zemeckis is sort of hit and miss on some of his films, and it's interesting that Venom is still hanging in there as number 1 the second weekend in a row. That's crazy. Well, I'll be interested to see what Here is all about myself once some of these reviews come in. I'll have to check them out. The Wild Robot is on my list, Dave. I know it made yours for an animated film.
I think it's a terrific movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if it gets an Academy nomination for Best Animated Feature.
Outstanding. Conclave wraps up the top 5 at Wait for this week. And Dave, a brief stint in the theater because of the anniversary of John Wick, 10-year anniversary hitting theaters in a limited slot. I can't believe it's been 10 years for John Wick. What a great franchise.
For the original one, and I actually saw a trailer for that before Absolution over the weekend.
I can't wait for the next one. Keanu Reeves kicking butt. You talked about Oscar contention. Of course, there are 12 leading contenders for Best Picture this year, Dave, and it looks like Anora is going to be there. Blitz, The Brutalist, Complete Unknown, Conclave. I think we've been talking about Conclave a lot. Dune Part 2. Emilia Perez is being considered for that. Gladiator 2, which I have not seen, Dave. Did you see that in the theater?
No, Gladiator 2, I don't think opens for another week or two.
Okay.
It's opening in November. I think you're going to see the week or two before Thanksgiving, you're going to have, I think, Gladiator 2, Wicked, is going to be opening. That's getting a lot of buzz. And then Moana 2 is opening on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, they're trying to squeeze all those films out. The Seed of the Sacred Pig is in there, September 5th. You mentioned Wicked, which looks good. I mean, we'll just have to see. And, of course, The Wild Robot also making some buzz in their consideration. So we'll have to see how those films come out. Feedback is. Now, speaking of Disney, Almost Christmas Story premieres November 15th on Disney Plus. It looks very interesting. Dave, have you seen this Disney Plus original short film directed by David Lowery?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. It's not only directed by David Lowery, but also Alfonso Cuarón, Jack Thorne are writers on it. And, of course, Academy Award winner Alfonso Cuarón, Gabriela Rodriguez, and David Lowery are producing as well. It looks very stop motion. Looks really cool. So an Almost Christmas Story is a third and final installment in the holiday shorts collection for Cuarón, with the first short, Les Pupilles, which earned an Oscar nom in 2022, and last year's The Shepherd, which was shortlisted in both the live-action short story category. So maybe you've seen those, Dave. Those other films.
I know I've seen some of those for sure. Some of the shorts. Honestly, I can't tell you from one title to another half the time, unless I know the filmmakers who did it. Some of these films, some of these shorts, I get to see them as part of the Academy. And by the way, Aljon, I will be talking about some of the shorts that are, been submitted for Academy consideration in the coming weeks.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to your take on that as always, Dave. The film's talented voice cast includes Carrie Christopher as Moon, newcomer Estela Madrigal as Luna, Jim Gaffigan as Papa Owl, Mandumo Athey as Pelly, and Alex Ross Perry as Dave the dog. So this looks very interesting, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. It looks like a very artsy film. Anytime they have the movie poster, Dave, and they have all the film awards, like the film festival awards lined up on the top, that it's an indie darling, right?
Right.
It's like, or it appeals to that crowd anyway. Goosebumps, The Vanishing, a new season of the thrilling anthology series, is set to premiere January 10th on Disney Plus and Hulu. The Goosebumps series is great for kids, young adults, what have you. I find the series very entertaining myself. Of course, it appeals to the fun kind of family horror genre, which is interesting to say the least. But of course, it's produced by Sony Pictures Television. And of course, the new season anthology series is set to premiere all 8 episodes Friday, January 10th across Disney Plus and Hulu. Goosebumps The Vanishing begins when twin Cece and Devin Brewer are sent to spend a summer in Gravesend, Brooklyn, with their divorced dad. A threat is stirring, and then they quickly realize the dark secrets are among them. So this looks very interesting. Goosebumps, The Van. Another one of our favorites, Dave. We've talked Elton John before. You saw the Elton John special on Disney Plus. And Elton John, David Furnish, and R.J. Cutler attend European premiere of Elton John's Never Too Late at the Great American Express Gala screening at the BFI London Film Festival. Of course, the Disney Plus original documentary premieres December 13th. So we're just a month away, practically, from the new Elton John show on Disney Plus. Dave, I love that Disney's putting out some of this musical content.
They're doing a lot of music documentaries, which I absolutely love. There's the new Bruce Springsteen documentary that's up on Disney Plus, which we're going to watch, and hopefully I'll watch that in the coming week. But I'm a huge fan of Elton John, and I'm looking forward to this documentary.
What I love about Elton John is he just seems like a real person. And, you had friends that worked with Elton because of all of his work with Disney soundtracks over the years and the Disney company. But he just seems, I've always been fascinated. One of my favorite records from Elton that my mom introduced me to was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And I I was just captivated. And I was a big fan of his in the 80s and still to this day. I think his music is great. I think he's just a great personality. But Elton John, Never Too Late, coming to Disney Plus December 13th. Elton John looks back on his life and the astonishing early days of his 50-year career in this emotionally charged full circle journey, of course, as he prepares for his final concert at Dodger Stadium we talked about. Looking forward.
And that was a great, that Dodger Stadium concert was a great concert. And by the way, little did we know the intrigue that was going on behind the scenes because the Dodger Stadium concert that day, right, that evening, Bob Chapek found out he was fired and Bob Iger was coming back in.
You know, that to me makes an entirely different documentary.
Absolutely.
I feel like that behind the scenes drama that unfolded and like literally the entire, an entire managerial floor of Disney was just collapsed in a matter of minutes. I felt, and a new, Bob Iger comes back installed by the board. It's like that layer of intrigue is a whole other film. I can't wait for a documentary to be written about that, Dave.
They could do a documentary on it, but they would have to do it like 10 or 15 years from now.
Oh, and it certainly wouldn't be Disney.
Whoever was still around would have some distance on that and maybe would go on camera to talk about it. I don't know.
I know 100%. It's funny because I am the Disney person at work. So when things like this happen, they oftentimes will come talk to me about it over the water cooler talk, if you will. Yeah. And I had one of my friends actually, my close friends at work, actually say that, I saw Bob Iger's master class. They have these classes that you subscribe for.
Sure. Yeah.
And was just fascinated by the whole thing. And of course, I told him about this whole situation about Bob coming back to work for Disney. And he was just enthralled about this whole drama that went on behind this. But anyway, that was the behind the scenes, behind the curtain of the Elton John show that we're talking about. So,
which was a great concert, by the way.
Yes.
I mean, watching that live on Disney Plus, Hulu. I guess it was on Hulu as well, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I'll never think about that show and not think about what happened at Disney that day.
I know.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Outer Banks Season 4 Part 2 trailer. Pogues head to Morocco for treasure hunt. Dave, Outer Banks is a show I believe you watch quite frequently.
I have to catch up on it. I haven't watched season 3, and I gotta tell you, I watched this trailer for season 4 and I thought it looked ridiculous. It looked absolutely ridiculous. But I want to watch it.
That's what it's all about. It's a romp. So Outer Banks Season 4 is going to be, it hits Netflix in just a few days for 7th. Dave, you still have time to catch up,
There you go.
Greg Hildebrandt. Oh, here we go. Hold on a second. We've got something new. Hold on. We got a new one. Here we go. You ready for this, Dave? Here we go.
Obituary roll call.
There you go.
That's gonna. Now people are gonna chuckle just like me every time I hear that. So the disembodied voice calls for this week's obituary roll call. Greg Hildebrandt, famed Star Wars and the Rings and Marvel artist, painted Style B artwork. UK release class. Dave Hildebrandt, around a lot of the artist circles, quite the legend.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, incredible artist. People should go online and check out the work that these two brothers did and what they did for Star Wars early on for George Lucas. Absolutely iconic images for the posters and the one sheets and things like that.
100%. And these are the types of fantasy images that, we've only seen the likes of, John Carter of Mars and the type of things he would do with like a Conan type of franchise, like Clash of the Titans, his classic film posters. And of course, who can forget the original one sheet for Star Wars, the iconic Vader silhouette with Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia in heroic pose as they take on the Death Star and C-3PO and R2-D2 looking on. I mean, that is just an amazing piece of art, pop art. And once again, just a legendary artist in Greg Hill. Alan Rakins, actor on L.A. Law and Dharma and Greg, dies at 82. This Emmy nominee got naked on Oh Calcutta and went to school at the AFI and appeared on Showgirls. You may not know the name, but you know his face.
You'd absolutely. If you saw his face, you'd go, oh my gosh, I've seen him in a million things.
Yes. I mean, he usually plays a jerk in a lot of these films.
Yes.
So he was totally typecast. But once again, if you remember him from Dharma and Greg or LA Law, and I was a huge fan of both of those shows growing up.
I mean, he was a funny character in Dharma and Greg.
Oh, he was.
He played sort of like an aging hippie.
Well, that's true. That's true. And that's where a lot of people might remember him. And I do like him. He wasn't a jerk in Dharma and Greg. He was funny.
Yeah.
But everywhere else, I mean, he's definitely got that look. You've seen him in a million things. Once again, passing away at the age of 80, who died in his sleep of heart failure. Once again, but what a great career.
Really terrific. I mean, really terrific body of work. I think both of these, Greg Hildebrandt, the artist, and Alan Rankins, the actor, they leave behind a big body of work, which is really amazing.
Well, our goal is to shine a light on some of these passings and make sure that they, everyone can look at their body of work and pay respects. And if you so choose, go back and IMDb their work, check out a film or two, and keep their memory alive, because their contributions to the world of entertainment are not going unnoticed by us. So thank you so much for their great contributions. And Dave, here we are now, our interview of the week. Sit back and relax. It's James Warda and Theron. How does Disney do that? Let's talk about that book right here on Skull Rock Podcast.
Let's do it.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Well, Aljon, once again, we've got a couple of fantastic guests. We've got authors James Warda and Theron Skees, who just recently wrote a book called How Does Disney Do That? How Disney Makes Us Feel and Why It Matters. This book released July 1st, 2024. And it's available both in paperback and a Kindle edition, which is fantastic. Gentlemen, welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So, look, I guess the first question I have to ask you is how did the idea for this book? I'm always fascinated by how ideas bubble up with people. How did the idea of this book come up? Who came up with it, and how did the two of you get together? So, James, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's this starts hundreds of years ago, back in the just kidding. Really, the book, where the book came from was, longtime Disney fan, had taken our kids to Disney growing up. We lived up in Illinois. Our middle son, moved down here to Florida. I'm in Florida now. And about 3 years ago, he called us. This was, I think, kind of after the pandemic or mid-pandemic, somewhere in there. And he said, you have to go on 2 new rides, relatively new rides at Disney World. He said, Rise of the Resistance and Flight of Passage. And then he said something that I do believe, if he hadn't said it, we might not be sitting here having this conversation. He said, but don't watch any videos. Don't watch anything about the rides. So, okay, we can do that. So we came down, went on Rise, and it was, just an amazing experience. And then we went on Flight of Passage. The other important thing about Flight of Passage is, I had seen Avatar. I didn't have an emotional connection to Avatar. But we went through just an incredibly detailed queue. And then we went on we're on the ride, we're getting ready to go on the attraction. And my son and I are there, and the wall goes up. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't been on it, but we dropped into Pandora, and we're flying through Pandora on a Banshee. And it literally took my breath away. And I was looking around, and after a couple minutes, I started to tear up. And I'm like, what, 57-year-old guy sitting next to I'm crying on a Disney ride. What's happening? And after a couple more minutes, I realized I was feeling this sense of wonder, and I'm like, wait, this is wonder. We don't get to feel that often. And so then as I'm walking out of the attraction afterwards, I asked myself in my head, how does Disney do that? and I knew right away I didn't mean just the method, like the lights they use and the sculpting and all that stuff. I meant this magic, this passion. And I instinctively knew this was like a collective passion of the people who had planned the ride, designed the ride, the cast members, all of that together to make me feel that way. So after that, I wrote on I used to write for the Chicago Tribune, a media blog, and I wrote about the experience. And I was like, I hit send or push or whatever. What do you hit? Enter. And not knowing what I was going to hear back. And I got hundreds of responses saying people had cried on that ride and Disney rides. And then later I was watching Imagineering Story on Disney Plus, and I saw Imagineers tearing up about the rides they had worked on. Mm. And then I don't work for LinkedIn, so I don't get a commission, but I was on LinkedIn. I saw a great video the Disney Institute posted about Disney Springs and the transformation of Disney Springs. And in the video was Theron Skees. So he was really good on the video, talked about the waterway, et cetera. So I just commented on it, hey, really cool. He then commented on my comment, and somewhere along the way, well, this is where I'll turn it over to Theron.
All right. Yeah. So Theron, why don't you pick it up there? But before you do, I just wanted to interject here. James, you mentioned earlier your son said he didn't want you to watch any videos. I take it like anything on YouTube that guests have shot of the attraction. He wanted you to go in and experience it cold, first time, not knowing anything, right?
Yeah. And I don't know. I may have had the exact same reaction, but I don't think so. Yeah. I think it was important that I had no idea what was about to happen.
That's awesome. Theron, so pick it up.
No spoilers, right, James?
Right.
Yeah, so when I saw James' reaction online, I just said, hey, we should, it'd be nice to chat about it, because one thing that he and I discovered after I reached out and we kind of connected, and I think we met over Zoom and just to say hi to each other, and we began talking more and more frequently, and we were like, we should collaborate and do something with this. And I think what was surprising for James to learn, this is what we said, and was sort of the catalyst for the book, was that he was a little bit surprised to find out that experience creators like Imagineers are always very interested in how the guest perceives what they've created. If any of your listeners know anything about projects in this industry, they go bam, 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 bam. You get maybe a weekend, right? Friday, one project stops. Monday, the next project begins. There's no time to go ascertain if the decisions that you made affected the guests positively or negatively. And, did all of your big ideas, how did it land? How did it hit? Are they emotionally connected? So what was fascinating to begin that conversation between James and I think really gave him the idea of how we can structure this book as those two voices, the fan and the experience creator. And we just kind of kept it going over the last 3 years. And the book is the result of that.
So, I want our listeners to understand, James, you're a corporate communications marketing guy. You've worked for the Chicago Times. You've done other, worked in the corporate world, and you're a fan of the of Disney and Disney parks. And Theron, you're a former Walt Disney Imagineer, and you're a designer. You have your own studio now. You work on projects all over the world. So I hate to have to draw this parallel, but it's kind of like Aljon and I, because nice. Aljon is a musician, and he works with Gibson guitars, and he's a huge Disney fan. And we kind of, came together because I had a 32-year career with Walt Disney Animation Studios and worked on all these animated films, and actually worked with Imagineering on a lot of projects. So he and I kind of have that sort of, we're simpatico in that way, just like you two are, which I find really fascinating. So I'm curious, Theron, how did you react to James, reaching out to you and talking to you sort of from the fan side of the fence, and you're on the insider side of the fence,
Absolutely. No, it's a great question. And what is amazing about all of this coming together, and the fact that we actually even have a relationship, a friendship, and a collaborative sort of mindset here, is after I had left Disney, right? So 2020, my career, just like thousands of others in the world, really took a left-hand turn. I got laid off from Disney. I was furloughed. And during that time, I was really rediscovering how do I teach others about what I did and what I do? And was it important? Does anybody care? Will it move the needle anywhere else? How do I make a living with what I know? And so as I was sorting all of those things out, I was much more open to hearing from other collaborators, from fans, from, just anybody, because I was in that sort of seeking mode. Whereas if I was in the role that I had previous to my layoff, I was the vice president of creative over the Disney Cruise Line, right? We had a $5 billion portfolio, 3 new ships, a new island, a dry dock every year. I mean, we were super, super busy, and I just didn't have the capacity to even entertain that kind of a relationship. So I'm very thankful for the timing of it all. James, as you always say, there's no coincidences, right? And it just aligned perfectly. And in a sense, our curiosity in the result and in the process matched each other. And that curiosity, that excitement, and that passion really were like 2 cylinders on an engine, and it kind of drove the content of the book.
Yeah. And I guess, the process for you guys, who did the writing? Were you pitching your manuscript back and forth and each contributing? How were you sort of working on the book together?
Well, I can jump in there. And I think I did a significant amount of the writing, but Theron did a lot of the writing on this book. So first of all, this book really came from hours and hours and hours of Zoom tapes, and I get no commission from Zoom either. And the transcripts. So pulling those transcripts. So I had a basic structure for the book. And so there were 2 real, very key people in this book who contributed to this book. I mean, many did, but probably the 2 key people would be Theron and my wife, Gina, because I sat with my wife for, hours. I'd get stuck. And, you're all very lucky because this almost became like some kind of scientific book or something. And she would pull me back from the edge and say, it's got to be fun too, And so we'd talk through it, and then I'd get on Zooms and I was up in Illinois, back and forth, and we would talk for hours, back and forth. And I loved, because Theron, I always say this, and he'll say, no. I'll say, sometimes listening to Theron is like listening, what I imagine it was like to listen to Walt, because he tells stories, and that's why Disney had him, doing so much great PR, but he's just a natural storyteller, and he's very passionate. So I think the book really came from a lot of my writing, a lot of those tapes, and then Theron went back and he did a lot of writing, and what's really cool about the book is it's for fans, but it's also for design students and professionals. So there's a chapter in there just for them too, from Theron.
And Theron, this was your first time writing a book?
I had contributed to, like Marty Sklar, of course, had written many books, and there's small contributions that I've made there. But it's the first full writing project that I had been involved with, and it was a real blast. It's so cathartic. Again, timing, just so cathartic to spend. I mean, literally 3 years. There's hundreds of hours of transcript and video. And there's probably a lot of stuff that James actually didn't distill in and use in this particular volume. But it was really fun. It wasn't drudgery at all. It was amazing.
And I know that you sent this out to people. You had beta readers, I'm sure, to review the manuscript, and then you sent out selection or a section of the book out, because I know I had the opportunity to read a portion of the book and I loved it. One question that's kind of burning with me, and I think this is really, I'm going to ask it twice, but from a different vantage point. Theron, when you and James first started communicating, were you a little bit tentative about, he's a super fan and, you were an Imagineer, sometimes, how do I put it? There's some fans that are a bit over the top, that sometimes, you kind of have to manage that a little bit. But did you ever get that sense with James?
I think one of the things that was very helpful is that a large portion, actually the majority of my Imagineering career, I found myself in positions where I spoke quite a lot with our fans, okay. All the way from dining programs to programs with the press, multiple cruises where I was presenting. So I was more comfortable in that environment, and that is along the whole entire striated range of fans, as you've said. And I'm not saying this just because we're on the call or for the benefit of your audience. I really mean it earnestly, is that I always left as an Imagineer, left totally pumped up about what it is that we did, the projects that we worked on, the stories we told, the collaborations, but most importantly, the results. And when you meet with your fans, the people that love what you do, you can't help but walk away and feel excited. And so I explain that in that way to say that was the experience that I had with James. It was hearing from somebody that so appreciated what was done, and the timing of that was so perfect, coming after such a mixed emotion of departing the company, discovering my own way, but then to hear from somebody that's like, wow, this was so emotional. What was created impacted and transformed me. And that was a very positive experience.
So essentially, because you've had so much interaction with fans of the company, you could gauge, whether James was a reasonable individual, let's say. And James, I'd ask you this question, like, how did you feel reaching out to Theron? Were you sort of tentative about it? Did you feel like, I don't want to overstep the bounds, or anything like that? Or did you just sort of slide right into a nice conversation back and forth with him?
That's a great question. And I'm probably not your typical super fan. I mean, I'm not going to, I definitely get it about some Disney fans that are very, very passionate. But I do bring...
And well-meaning. They're all well-meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I mean, they are well-meaning, but sometimes they sort of, breach the personal space and, all of that,
Which really, I mean, is in a way is really testament to the emotional connection Disney creates with them. Yeah. Because it's like, you wouldn't probably go, oh my gosh, my LG refrigerator. I'm so passionate. I don't know, no offense to LG. But myself too, just so you have some background. So I come from corporate communications. So that's communications, PR, marketing. I mean, I have a first book called Where Are We Going So Fast? Finding the Sacred in Everyday Moments. I wrote for Disney, for Celebrations Magazine, WDW Magazine. So I had done Disney writing, and I had been an author and stuff. But I'm also still, you'd probably call it a fanboy, because I remember I would tell Theron, I'm very openly, I'd say, when I'd see an Imagineer at the park, it was like seeing Bruce Springsteen. I always kind of like Theron. Oh my God, Theron Skees. So, but it was such a natural conversation. It was such a natural thing, and Theron's just kind of, I think our personalities match up very well too.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
And literally, like as soon as we were talking, we're like, we got to share this conversation.
Yeah.
So the synergy was instant. I mean, I think we realized instantly this is important, what we're talking about, and not just because it's the two of us. Yeah. Just the conversation is important.
Yeah, I have to say, again, the book, How Does Disney Do That? How Disney Makes Us Feel and Why It Matters. And really, this is really all about those incredible experiences that are created at all the parks around the world. And I would even take it beyond that and say, the experience you have when you go to see a Disney animated film or, a Disney movie, even some of the vintage material, which really connects, I think, to a lot of the fans. But it does affect people differently, and there isn't a person, I don't think, on this planet that doesn't have a Disney story or something that makes them, feel good, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Did you guys find that from all the people you were talking to?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, literally everybody that I've been talking to just in the last few weeks, for example. And everybody I interviewed for this book, as soon as when I finished that interview, they'd say, "Oh, have you talked to," or have you talked to, so everybody in the book is connected to each other, and if you want to know the power of the Disney, I mean, I just did a post in one of our groups today about Inside Out 2. I haven't seen it yet, but I just read that it was the first animated film, the quickest film to get to $1 billion global sales. It did it in 19 days.
Yes.
And what are people saying? They're saying it's a very emotionally compelling movie about emotions. So it's like,
it's a great film. I saw it. Okay. I spoke about it with Aljon last week. I saw it in the theaters opening weekend, and I have to tell you, I think did I see it opening weekend? I think I might have seen it the second weekend. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. Anyway, but I think it's a wonderful film. But the reason why it's resonating is because it's hit the three things that you need. Great story, number one. Great story, great characters that you like, and some that you kind of not sure you like or you don't like, but characters you want to spend time with in a world that you want to spend time in, And if you got those three things, and part of what was happening with Disney over the last, few years is that they were trying to really jam messaging in, and it was sort of overshadowing some of those other, that three-legged stool. It was sort of overshadowing that. And this is why this movie is crossed $1 billion so quickly globally, is because it's a story that resonates with just about everybody,
I think there's another reason it's resonating, and I think it's one of the main reasons. You won't really find this in the book. You might find hints of it in the book, but this book is about Disney, but it's about something much bigger, and especially in the world now. Especially in the world now, I'm not going to, I'm just going to say people need connection. We just need to remember that we're more alike than we're not. And Disney's a beautiful example of it, right? We always say in the groups, if Disney didn't exist, we need to create it.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Theron, what do you hope will happen with this book? And I'm going to ask James you the same question, but Theron, what do you want to see happen with this book? And do you guys have ideas about doing a series here?
Well, I'll definitely let James talk to the continuation of this, because, we definitely have the desire. Of course, it's based on the response that we get. We don't want to be two deluded dudes in a room thinking we're amazing and the rest of the world says not. But we believe there's something here, and we're hoping to be able to continue in some way. I think for me personally, what my hope is that people are inspired, right? I spent my 30+ year career managing creative people for the legacy brands, mostly for Disney, but for Universal and others. And my goal and my hope always was to inspire others to create these amazing experiences. And the purpose of that was to touch people emotionally and to make a better experience, make a better world, to escape and to play and to enjoy and to be closer. And I hope that the book does that with a range of people, with Disney fans, with pros that are in the industry or students that are trying to get into the industry. I hope they find inspiration and guidance, and it encourages them. But I also hope that people take this and apply it in their lives. And I hope that professionals look at this, who run companies, and say, we have a product or a service, and connecting with an audience would drive our business better. And these guys seem to have hooked into something that's important, and let's investigate further. That would be my hope. So I didn't mean to steal all the thunder, James.
No, not at all.
James, yeah, go ahead, James. Talk a little bit about what your hopes are for the book, and if there will be a series or another one.
Yes, there will definitely be a series. So if you look on the cover of the book, and you'll see, Theron designed our logo. So the cover of the book was, the cover was designed by Jonathan Hill with my publisher, but Theron designed the logo. And behind the logo, you see a starburst. And the starburst behind it has 8 colored lines. So hypothetically, that might lead you to believe that there might be 8 books coming in this series, each with one of those colors being the dominant color on the cover.
Got it.
And hypothetically, the next book would be, say, about Disney cast and crew members, and then, international live entertainment. So yeah, there's definitely a series planned, and a lot of these stories came from our online groups and through our website. So, it's such a wonderful thing. And then, like Theron was kind of alluding to, we'll be speaking, doing some presentations, and also, a key to this is also getting it into the universities. I was an adjunct professor. I know Theron's done a lot of teaching. So the way we look at it, this book is important for designers, because they know that it's really what they're shooting for. You want a fan to feel wonder or laugh, or, and just overall for me, what I hope people get out of this book is connection, to each other, and to just take just an extra breath to notice what's going on around you,
Yeah.
When we go to see, it would be Illuminations at the time. We'd go to Epcot and we'd stand around and watch the fireworks. A lot of times I wouldn't watch the fireworks. I'd watch the people. Mm-hmm. And you see people with their kids on their shoulders. And
listen, I totally hear you on that one. I had worked with Steve Davison on the World of Color, the original show at Disney's California Adventure, and when I had seen it so many times in progress, because it was being programmed at night. We were delivering our animation projections and all of that stuff, but when I actually went to see it, the premiere show with the guests, I was actually looking at all the guests to see how they were reacting to what we had done out in the lagoon there.
Definitely.
And Theron, I know because you've been an Imagineer, you that's what we do. You know, we're wanting to see how it's resonating with the guests, and even you know, working on an animated film. You know, towards the end of the time I was actually working on Disney animated films, I stopped really going to wrap parties and actually went to the movie theater with a general audience to watch the film, and would sit in the theater having seen the movie, you know, countless times already. I would really sit in the theater and just be looking around at various moments to see if people were laughing when they were supposed to be laughing, and seeing if they were enjoying it and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, I totally hear that. You know, I hear what you're saying, James. And I think it's, you know, it really is about creating those great experiences that are meaningful to people, that stay with them. It's a touchstone for them for their lifetime.
That's right. I mean, it's you know what's funny is, I don't mean to be plugging my first book, but after I wrote this book,
that's why you're on this podcast.
Well, I know.
plug away.
Yeah, okay, but I'm not. You know, I want it to be about what we're talking about, and you know, I realized after I was like in the middle of writing this book, I'm like, wait a minute, both of my books are questions for their titles. The first book is Where Are We Going So Fast? And the second book is How Does Disney Do That? And they're both about the same thing. They're just about these kind of powerful moments. I call them sacred, these powerful moments that like connect us together, you know, and that it's just really important we notice these things. So when we brought our daughter in her stroller years ago on Main Street, and I looked down at her, and then a couple years ago we brought our granddaughter to Epcot, and I'm looking at her in my son's arms watching the fireworks. Those two moments connected together. And there's something very important. I don't exactly know the answer there, and I think it's good I don't know the answer. But Theron and I don't know. It's like, because he's also very interested in that same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think Disney is so unique, is such a unique brand that, you know, you've got generation upon generation upon generation who have there's a thread through the lives of families, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, where, you know, grandpa's taking the granddaughter to the park for the first time, and will take the granddaughter subsequent years from now to the park, and that's their connection. You know, those are the memories. That's the fabric of a family's life, and I think that's just so. It's so amazing to be part of that in some way, Theron. You know, because when you kind of step back from your day to day of what you're doing, you know, you realize that you're part of a team of really talented people who are creating these experiences that millions of people are going to have. And I think that
absolutely
there's something sacred about that.
Incredibly so. Even though you have this range of expertise from design to artistic to media, I mean, you have all of these very focused and cross-functional disciplines that are all experts in the field. But at the end of the day, every single one of those team members are working together in a bit of a psychological web, right? Because what we're dealing with is humans and human emotion and human sensory perception. And that's really what James and we actually got really deep on some of that stuff was the how. And I'm grateful that we didn't go that deep in the book, because it would have been, as you said, James, too scientific. But we wanted people to realize that this doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen necessarily because Disney created a great film, and that automatically translated to a great three-dimensional immersive experience in a park. That can get messed up, that translation, if not done very carefully. And there's so much psychology that literally goes into how do people feel? How do they look? How do they interact? What's visually acceptable? What's too loud? What's too soft? And just so much goes into the thinking behind all of that. And it's years. Projects are, I don't know that Imagineering does much under 3 years, right? So it's like 3 to 5. The ships were 7 years to do that. It's a huge commitment to infuse that in there. And we wanted readers to kind of get a sense for that it's not a mistake, that it's a formula, that it's a process, and that there's a lot of care and love that goes into it.
And there's also a lot of tweaking and adjusting along the way, which is very much like writing a book, because you're writing chapters and rewriting chapters and rewriting chapters. And I think, when you're working on whether it's an animated film or a theme park attraction and experience, there's that iterative process that you're going through right up until it's being installed, where you're making minor tweaks and changes because you feel you need to enhance the experience.
Yeah, so, definitely.
I'm going to read you a quote. Here's a jacket quote. I want our listeners to hear this. James Warda invites us to board the emotional roller coaster of Disney's enchanting universe, where every ride, every detail is a testament to the power of imagination. With anecdotes that blend humor and sincerity, he peels back the layers of wonder and invites us to ask, how does Disney do that? Strap in, hold tight, and prepare for a journey that will touch your heart and reignite your sense of awe. I labored over that jacket quote for you guys,
And you're a great, I'm not saying this just because you're on here, Dave, but you're a great writer. And, but see, that's the thing about this book. So there's a great example, right? So there's my wife and I, Coronado Springs, loving the Dahlia, the tower, and learning about Dolly and Disney, and all of a sudden I connect with you. Had no idea that you had written a book about Destino, which we had just been watching a week before, marveling. Awesome. My daughter was just blown away by it, and that's how this book. Those coincidences happened throughout the development of this book. And, Dave, like you said, I always thought of it as like being an Imagineer. As an author is like being an Imagineer. Because this book, when it started, I remember our conversations. Theron and I and our publisher sat around going, well, it's going to be whimsical. It's Disney. It's whimsical, right? The book did not obey. Because as I interviewed people, they were sharing stories that you truly would not believe. Almost every other story choked me up. It's like the stories where, one woman who, loved going to Disney with her mom, and then her mom passed away, and the whole family decided to still go on the mom and dad's 50th wedding anniversary. And she's, under the breezeway at Spaceship Earth, remembering her mom. And I'm like, and it's just one of them. So it's like the book's whimsical, but it's also, there's something else very important.
It has a heart to it is what it is. Yeah. It really has an emotional heart to it that I think the stories, resonate with people who are going to read this book. There's gonna be a visceral reaction from people as they read these stories, because they're gonna have some connection. They're gonna go, oh wow, that's very similar to what I experienced doing X, at Epcot or Walt Disney World or whatever place. But those are those moments that come together, I think, and that's what makes the project so special. And that's why I think this book is really going to do well. And I highly recommend it to our listeners to get a copy and just sit back and read this, because I think you get choked up in some parts, hearing some of these stories. And that to me is a good thing. It makes you feel alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it makes you feel. That's what Flight of Passage did, And maybe, and that's why it's so cool that that's a very technical term that I just
cool.
Cool. Yes, it's a term that we've used at Disney for decades. Very cool.
So just it's so cool that Joe Rohde wrote the foreword.
Yeah. And did you know him? Did you just reach out to him cold and say, we're doing this?
No, I did not know him, but here you go. This is how these things happen.
Yeah.
So I saw him on a wonderful webinar from Zeitgeist Productions, and I actually he had a quote when he was talking about why it was so important to understand emotion as a designer. So I asked if I could have permission to use that quote in my book, and I got that permission. But then I met another, I won't mention his name, but another former Imagineer who's in the book who worked with Joe. And he reached out to Joe and kind of told him the concept and asked him if he would write the foreword. For me, it was always a dream, but it was never a dream I really thought would happen. But it seems perfect because his attraction, well, he was the creative lead on it. I mean, many worked on it, but it was his attraction that caused all this, right?
Yeah.
The catalyst.
It was just a perfect kind of, okay, this closes the circle.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think I was going to say, Theron, I think most of us who worked at the company are reasonably grounded.
Yeah, I think so. I think most, you can't go through you can't survive very long at the company unless you're grounded, I think, because you go through one project I was on, 3 years in, we discovered that we were like $40 million over budget. And there was just no time for anything else but hyper focused to how do we make this right, but without sacrificing for the guests. That was the focus. And we all felt it. We all felt, oh my goodness, this could completely undermine everything we've worked so hard to create for the guests. And happy to say everybody rolled up their sleeves. We got into it, including the contractors, and we figured it out. And you can't see, what we cut out. I think the point that I would love to leave you guys with that I think is so important about this book is that interpersonal connection matter. That's James was saying that, right? The connection with each other. We're all part of the same race. That's the human race. So that interconnection matters. And then really important is that emotional connection to a brand matters. That's really, really, really important. My entire studio, my whole practice is based on that, with companies all over the world, whole countries, approach me for this kind of thing. How do we make an emotional connection with our brand? Because, Walt did it, right? People come back over and over and over to get that. And we wanted to explore the importance of that. It's not the technology, it's not the innovation, it's not the nuts and bolts. It's the synergy of all of that together with a real heartfelt story in the center.
And to that point, and I think the reason why, so many of us that have worked for the company for any extended amount of time are grounded is because it is a team effort. It is not about, me or I, it is about we and us. And,
absolutely.
And it's these incredible groups of people that come together that make these things happen. It's not one individual.
Right.
It's usually hundreds of individuals that have come together as an amazing team of people and distilled all of their experience and brilliance into whatever that attraction is or whatever that show is, or, that right. kind of a thing. So, and I think that's important for the listeners to know that.
And as a fan, that's when I got off that ride, when I got off Flight of Passions, I knew I felt wonder because somebody at the very beginning of this thing and along the way felt wonder. And like they use their art to transfer that wonder to me. Yeah. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I just want our listeners to know, once again, we're talking with Theron Skees and James Warda, the authors of How Does Disney Do That? How Disney Makes Us Feel, and Why It Matters, which is hugely important. I think that's, this is a great title of the book. I have to tell you, I've had the opportunity to read an advance copy and to get advance copies. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It released on July 1st. 2024, actually the very day that we're doing this interview with these authors, and it's available wherever books are sold. And as I always like to say, if you have a favorite local bookstore, they can order this. Just go in and tell them what the title is, and they can order the book, and you can help your local independent bookstore survive. And you can get it at the other usual outlets that I'm not going to give free advertising to. So, nice. and I want to add, Aljon wants to speak.
I've got two questions for our esteemed guests, and maybe Dave, you can chime in as well. Because this is about how Disney makes us feel with these attractions, Theron and James, if you could name your favorite Disney attraction in all the parks. It can even be international if you wish. But what would it be? What is the crowning jewel that you can point to just your average person to say this is the ultimate Disney storytelling attraction?
Theron, I'll let you go first.
Theron, you want to go first?
It's always hard to ask an Imagineer or a former Imagineer what's your favorite, because for obvious reasons. But the only park that I haven't visited is Shanghai, so I don't have an actual physical experience there. But I'd have to say my favorite is Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye at Disney's California Adventure. There's a lot of reasons why I love that, but there's just some really big, amazing open spaces in there. Tony Baxter, the team, did an amazing job there. I love that one. But a very close second, like a 1B, would be Tower of Terror. I've been with that attraction almost my whole entire career. I was fortunate enough to lead the project in Paris that installed the one there. And that I'm absolutely a fan. So it's hard to discern the difference there.
That's great. James?
Yeah, well, I always do what Theron does, so I'll give you my top one, but first I'll tell you the runner-up. So the runner-up is Peter Pan's Flight, and it's because the moment when you fly over London, I know it's, again, this is not CG, that to me is the ultimate, that is Imagineering right there, I feel like I'm flying over London, but I have to say my favorite is no longer around, which is Maelstrom, and for many reasons, but one of which is that the opening narration for those who seek the spirit of Norway, there, and it's in the book, you'll read about this, but whenever our family's around, whenever we're just all together, my son will break that little quote out, and it never fails to crack us up, but it does something deeper. Just make, we all instantly go back to those memories. So there's just something about Maelstrom. I'm going to see if I can recreate it in my backyard, but we'll see.
The last bit I'm going to ask, and I get this a lot because we're all adults here. We're on this podcast. We promote, the things that matter, the things that we're passionate about. But why do you believe, and I believe this because some of my non-Disney friends mentioned this to me. Why do you believe Disney adults get a bad rap? I feel that if you're a Disney fan and for the uninitiated, we'll look at you like, why are you going to that park again? You just went to that park. Or I don't understand why you're a big Disney fan. Isn't it just for kids? To those people, what would you say in order to assuage them
that Disney adults is a good thing? James, we can start with you.
That's a great question. And because I totally get it. And again, one of the chapters actually mentions that about, all you got to do if you want to find out if somebody is a Disney fan or not, all you got to do is mention 2 words and just say, welcome home. And if they're Disney fans, you'll see a smile. If they're not, the eyes will probably roll, And I think now that it's a great question. I never really thought about it. I think one of the things is we don't really know how to talk about it. We know Disney makes us feel a certain way, but we're like, how do I explain why I was wearing a Goofy hat walking through Disney, but I'm a corporate communications person? So I think that's kind of what I was trying to do. What we were trying to do with the book is like, let's kind of figure out, why do we love it? And maybe they can, maybe they can all kind of carry, if they get that question, maybe they can, it's about being able to explain it a little better. I'm not sure, but it's like, to me, it's like being in love, I mean, you can't really, if you can explain it, you probably aren't. So, they don't need to love Disney. Not everybody needs to love Disney. I happen to, and I think there's about another billion or so people who agree.
Sure. Theron?
Great question, and Aljan, mad props for using the word assuage. Super cool. It reminds me of a letter Abraham Lincoln wrote to a mother who lost her sons in the Civil War. So very, very cool. I would say that I think that there are a couple of different groups of people in this world. Some people, the world beats up and they build a wall and they protect themselves. And I think that they sometimes don't give themselves permission to look foolish or to act foolish or to, kind of release that sort of inner child and allow themselves the freedom to play or to escape. And I think there's another whole group of people, of which I would put the Disney fans and people that love that experience, who also get beat up by the world, but instead of putting up that wall, they seek that inner child, and they go to that sort of place where they like to escape into a world of fantasy and story. It's not that they're not in touch with the reality. It's just that they've given them permission to play. They've given themselves permission to play and to escape, and that it's okay to be Peter Pan and to be whimsical and to be silly and not to be embarrassed by that. And my opinion is the people that allow themselves that freedom of whimsy and silliness probably live longer, probably have a lot happier lives, And I think that's why Disney is there. And that is the reason, as Dave said about the title of the book, the reason that we did this was primarily for the second group of people, but our hope is that we'll convert some of the first group of people to tear down those walls and to be that inner 7th grader and run through the park screaming with popcorn falling out of your mouth.
That's amazing. I love that answer.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap up, and I just once again want our listeners to know that we've been talking about how does Disney do that, how Disney makes us feel, and why it matters, by James Warda and Theron Skees. It released on July 1st, 2024. It's available wherever you get your books from. And gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming on the Skull Rock podcast and talking about your book and your experiences and how the book came to be.
Well, thank you, Dave. This has been awesome. I'm a huge fan of yours. I think again, your books. I know. Yes,
thank you. As Aljon would say, somebody's got to be.
Might as well be us.
I just appreciate when something is done really well. So, like I said, just a big fan. And it's funny because I'm reading Dolly and Disney. It's like, that sounds like me and Theron and you and Aljon. I mean, two people coming together who've got a passion something.
Absolutely. And in some sense, two unlikely individuals connecting, because Aljon and I kind of connected, really because I had done an interview on his podcast to promote a book a number of years ago, and we just kind of hit it off. Believe it or not, I've told people I've never met Aljon in person. We're still on our podcast, but I'll let our listeners know this. Aljon and I have never really met each other in person, but Aljon reminds me that we did meet once at a D23 convention, and I was interviewed by him for like 5 minutes while we were there. But, I was going from one podcaster to the next. So, but we haven't, now I'm going to say Aljon and I have never sat down and had an in-person conversation together for any length of time over drinks. How's that?
Dave, remember I told you about coincidences?
Yes.
Well, Theron and I had never met in person for 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. The first time we met in person was when we did a presentation at the GM Conference and Training Center at Test Track in the fall for the Carolwood Society. We were doing our first How Does Disney Do That workshop. It was the first time we ever met in person. So,
that's awesome.
Very similar. Well, I thank you, Dave and Aljon. I just say my thanks. I appreciate all that you guys do. Thanks for your excellence and affording us the opportunity to talk about what we love. That's the greatest privilege on earth, is to have a passion and then be able to express that passion. So thanks for giving us the forum and the vehicle to do that.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure. And we wish you the best of luck with the book, and we look forward to the next ones. So keep us posted. Okay, gentlemen. And we will see you at some point in the future. Thanks again for being on the Skull Rock podcast.
Hey, everybody. My name is Kyle Maynard. I am a author of the book No Excuses, a 2-time ESPY award winner, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro born without arms and legs, bear crawled up the mountains. And I'm stoked to be here listening to Skull Rock podcast.
The time is now to start booking and looking at your next Walt Disney World trip. And the lady that can do it for you to help you save time and money is sitting right here. She is our travel guru, Kristen. What is today's Disney travel deal?
Well, right now you can save up to 25% on rooms at select Disney Resort hotels for early 2025, which is just around the corner. So you can save up to 20% on rooms for stays most Sunday to Thursday nights from January 1st to February 20th. And then you can save up to 25% on rooms for most nights from February 23rd to April 30th. So, of course, the higher percentage is for, like, if you're staying at those deluxe villas. And then it just kind of goes down from there. But
all right,
definitely worth the discount.
It's always worth money. It's always worth your time to book with Kristen, because she'll save you time and money. And Kristen, where can people email you and have them book your or their next Walt Disney World, Universal, or any cruise trip vacation?
They can contact me at themeparksandcruises@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Your attention, please. Now loading on track number 1 for a trip around Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom.
Skull Rock Podcast.
All aboard.
Your Main Street to the world of Disney.
Another great interview with two great people, James Warda and Theron. And how does Disney do that? I'm sure people are just adding that onto their Christmas shopping list right now.
I really hope they do, because, this is one of those unique books that's just a little different take on Disney. And if you're a Disney fan and you're touched by the Disney magic and enjoy going to the parks, this is the type of book that I think you'll really enjoy. I know I did. It's always great talking with other authors.
Absolutely. And people that have such a passion and sharing that passion and try to educate people and entertain them as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being on this show. And thank you, everyone, for being part of Skull Rock Podcast. Every week we deliver these podcasts full of information, reviews, great interviews. And if you love it, please be sure to subscribe to us in whatever platform you follow us on in terms of listening. It could be Apple, which a good 85% of you do on Apple. We're also on YouTube, of course, Spotify. Like, share, and subscribe to the show. Follow us on all the social media, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram. We're there. Feel free to join our community of people.
And YouTube. Don't forget YouTube.
Yes, YouTube. Leave those comments as well. And we're getting more and more subscribers every day, so please don't forget. And even if you do listen to us on a podcast, we'd appreciate you subscribing to us on YouTube. You can also email me, Aljon at skullrockpodcast.com, or Dave at skullrockpodcast.com. We love those emails. And don't forget to check out my show, Dining at Disney. It launches 2 shows every single week, and you can follow me on Instagram, AljonGo, ALJONGO, on Instagram. Dave?
Well, as always, we're going to be at the Animation Y'all Expo in Nashville, Tennessee, February 21st to the 23rd. We're looking forward to that. This month, Aljon, on my Tunes Behind the Tunes show on SiriusXM Disney Hits, Channel 133, we're spotlighting Moana, How Far I'll Go song, and we're doing that in celebration and in anticipation of Moana 2.
I love that song.
Which is coming up on November 27th.
Awesome.
It's releasing for Thanksgiving weekend, so
I have to ask
looking forward to that.
I have to ask you, Dave, how do you like being a DJ on XM?
Yeah, I actually enjoy going in there. I have to tell you, it's just been it's been a fun experience. I've been down to the SiriusXM studios in Hollywood several times to record these, and it's a great group, very professional, very nice studios, I must say. And you never know who you're going to run into. The last time I was there, I was chatting with Pat Boone.
That's amazing. So good, Dave. Yeah, awesome. Good for you.
And also, as far as books go to theoldmillpress.com. You can get an autographed copy of my latest book, Find Your Happy Place, the 8-Step Guide to Boosting Your Creativity Through a Personal Retreat. And my friends, if you got a copy already, please do a review on Amazon. And if you haven't gotten a copy, my gosh, I think this is a great book for the holiday season. But hey, don't take my word on it, Take Aljon's word.
It's great. Go buy it now. I'll leave a review on Amazon.
And you can always go to davidbossert.com. There's lots of free content. There's free stuff you can send away for. There's nothing like giving an author-signed book for the holiday season. So make it a point. Put it on your list, and I will be most appreciative. And with that, Aljon, I would say go out and have a fantastic week. Vote on Tuesday.
Yes.
Make your voice heard, and we'll see you back here next Monday, right here on the Skull Rock Podcast.